All right, we are back again. U.S. History 2, Berlin Wall. This is an emblem. Berlin, we were in the first video of the Cold War. We talked about Berlin, how it was divided, and we had the Berlin airlifts. What goes on in Berlin is sort of representative of the Cold War in general. So the Cold War is all these events happening all around the world, and Berlin's kind of like the emblem or the symbol of the Cold War. What happens there is going to be reflective of the entire situation, which is why it was such a big deal in 1989 when the Berlin Wall was torn down, because that was basically showed, okay, the Soviets are losing, and then 2 years later the Soviet Union's going to fall apart. But throughout the 50s and 60s, a lot of people from East Berlin left to live in West Berlin. Stalin dies in the mid to late 50s, and there's a couple, but the guy who really took power in the Soviet Union was a man named Nikita Khrushchev. He demands the U.S. get out of all of Germany. You're not allowed in West Berlin anymore. And Kennedy's like, sorry, no, we're staying. Nothing you can do about it, pal. And Khrushchev's like, oh yeah, I can do something about it. I will build a wall to divide the city so that none of the East Germans can escape over into West Germany. Basically, I'm locking them in. I'm trapping them in this area of the city because, again, it's under a Soviet dictatorship. Why wouldn't you want to leave? So the Berlin Wall goes up rather quickly, and there are some crazy stories where, I don't know, let's say you had, Berlin's a pretty big city, right? Let's say you had a meeting. Let's say you lived in West Berlin. You had a meeting on the eastern side of town. The meeting's like, let's say it's an all-day kind of thing. You don't really know what's going on during that day. You're driving back home from work. There's a wall in the middle of the road. You're not allowed through. You're stuck in that part of Berlin until 1989. You might be separated from your family for like almost 40 years. That did happen to some people. Some other people jumped over just as it was being built and were allowed to live in West Germany. It was so bad that what the Soviets also constructed alongside the Berlin Wall were sniper towers. And because people would, of course, try to climb the wall and jump over it, they didn't want to live there. And there would be armed guards, and they would shoot anyone that was trying to go over the wall, just shoot them on sight. So there was this little area kind of in between the wall and then where I guess West Berlin would start, where there was just, you'd find dead bodies like in the mornings because people were getting shot. So this wall stands until 1989. Kennedy's going to give a famous speech in front of it. In the 80s, Ronald Reagan gives a famous speech where he says, "Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall." And Gorbachev was in the 1980s was the prime minister or the leader of the Soviet Union. So Berlin Wall, 1961. Now let's get to Kennedy's speech. The jelly donut thing, that's going to draw your attention first, so I might as well address that. Just like a hamburger is called a hamburger because it comes from Hamburg, Germany, well, a jelly donut comes from Berlin, Germany. Fun fact. And so the word Berliner can either refer to a person living in Berlin, like you'd say like a New Yorker, a Berliner, or a jelly donut. JFK is going to pledge his unity with the people of Berlin and say, "I'm a Berliner." Some newspaper in like the 80s or something ran this story about, if you look back at it, JFK, when he said, "I am a Berliner," he was saying, "I am a jelly donut." Okay, he was not saying, "I'm a jelly donut." If you speak German, I've watched videos of people break this down. What he said, "Ich bin ein Berliner," is the only possible way that he would have that he could say that he's a citizen of Berlin, like he's like solidarity with them. Although in different dialects of Germany, farther from Berlin, this would mean "I am a jelly donut," but not to the audience he was speaking to. German is very between northern and southern Germany. There a lot of different dialects. So, 2,000 years ago, the proudest boast was Civis Romanus Sum, which means I am a Roman citizen. Today, in the world of freedom, the proudest boast is Ich bin ein Berliner. I am a Berliner. All free men, wherever they may live, are citizens of Berlin, and therefore, as a free man, I take pride in the words Ich bin ein Berliner. And the crowd went wild. So what's this all about? JFK goes to Berlin. He gives a speech in front of the wall to just let them know, we're not abandoning you. We're going to stick with you through this. And, they built the wall because I wouldn't abandon you, and we're not going to abandon you from this point on. We're with you. We're in solidarity. And the United States did keep true to that promise. And that's, again, why Berlin is sort of the emblem of the entire Cold War. What happens in Berlin reflects pretty much everything else. Okay, next up, we're going to get into the assassination of JFK. No, we're not. We're going to get into the Cuban Missile Crisis. Sorry. And then he gets assassinated after that. What's going on in the United States during this time? We have the Freedom Riders. We have the sit-in movement. We have the march in Birmingham, where Martin Luther King gets arrested and writes the letter from the Birmingham jail. So one of the things of the Cold War and the Civil Rights Movement is that all these things are all happening at the same time. And so for any president to be in charge, this must have been one of the most stressful times to be a president, for guys like Truman, for Eisenhower, Kennedy, later on Lyndon Johnson, and, because so much stuff is going on. You've got the threat of nuclear war looming over your head. Okay. On that note, see you next time.